Peace, everyone. Welcome back to another BABTalk. My brother Safo here. Obviously, you know Geechee, y'all. Today we have one of our favorite guests, one of our favorite minds, authors, good brother. I'm gonna let him come on and introduce himself for those that don't know him. I don't know that there's many people out there that don't know, but my brother Jared.
Peace. Greet.
Something my click work.
No, it's all good.
Let you in, man.
Greetings, everybody. I appreciate.
What the hell's going on here?
Good. Okay. Anyway, no, I appreciate the invitation. My name is Jared Ball. I am.
So we talking, man. I don't know if something going on with my click.
Oh. Do you all hear me? Okay. Anyway, my name is Jared Ball, a father, husband, professor. Uh-oh. I'm not sure we're on the same page yet.
I think it's on now. I don't know. It kept kicking you out.
Yeah, sorry about that, Jared. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't know.
Oh, no, it's cool. Okay. Now, again, I'm just Jared Ball, father, husband, professor of communication and Africana studies at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland, and co-host and founder with Black Power Media and my show, I Mix What I Like. And I appreciate the invitation.
So we had this thing, and we talk about it often, and also, you know, Safa told us earlier about Fred Hampton concept of creating solutions don't solve. So a lot of y'all saw the title. If you have any questions, make sure you jump in a question box and ask questions from your YouTube video, or if you're watching on Facebook, make sure you chime in. Me and Safa, we're just gonna kind of go, you know, simultaneously with questions and dialogue. But like we said, you can always join in the dialogue. So we can start off with a question from Asafo, and then we'll just go back and forth.
Cool.
All right, brother Jared. Now, in an earlier presentation, you spoke about I'll give you the quote from an earlier presentation that you gave. Quote: "People in the United States are the most heavily propagandized people in the world by far." Can you elaborate on this and explain how this relates to our widespread acceptance of anti-Black myths?
Sure. I'll be as brief as possible, and then we can expand as anyone likes. But the short of it is that my point is that there's an underappreciated history of the development of propaganda in the United States in particular, with it being understood as psychological warfare and counterinsurgency, and it being sort of grafted on to the development of the society, to its institutions, to its political purpose, to it being disseminated and established through education, popular media, of course, etc. And because of this country being the dominant country in the world for so long, with its dominance over technology and wealth producing capabilities, and of course military capability, that just by definition makes those of us held within it the most, you know, in some ways, in terms of propaganda, the most heavy recipients of it. So in a quote that I think is often attributed to Noam Chomsky, but I'm not entirely sure it's his, but the point being that propaganda is to democracy what violence is to totalitarianism. So in a society that would claim to be overtly dictatorial, you don't have to worry about propaganda. You can just, you know, you hit somebody over the head, you stick a gun in their face, you disappear them, put them in prison, and they know what's going on. But in a society like this that at least claims to be about a democracy and freedom, they have to propagandize us even more. And with the technological capability, et cetera, as I said, that this country has, it just by definition means that we held within it are going to be the most heavily propagandized population ever. in world history.
So one of
Oh,
the things,
sorry. The second part of that question. Sorry, but the second part of that question is that about anti-blackness is that it has been long understood that psychological warfare is a parallel component in military combat and subjugation, enslavement, colonialism, etc. So post the physical violence of enslavement, once the claim became that we were free, we had to be propagandized even more. So, Du Bois has talked about it in terms of the propaganda of history. Sort of his rival, so to speak. Garvey certainly understood the power of propaganda, and that's why he became a journalist and a developer of the Negro world and a powerful spokesperson and someone who adorned himself in a certain regalia and pageantry, because it was all about responding in a way to the psychological warfare that has to come alongside a claim that Black people will be free. Because if you're not viciously enslaving through physical violence, there has to be a psychological component that manages that population once the official version of enslavement has run its course. So anyway, that's sort of what I meant.
Well, the most insidious thing I found, what I find rather about propaganda, is that it's especially here in the United States, its ability to make, especially Black people, not exclusively, but especially Black people, think that they're arriving at these anti-Black conclusions on their own. And I find that extremely, extremely insidious, even dangerous.
I don't think we arrive at any conclusion on our own. Every conclusion we reach is part of a process, right. Even the ones we like or that are good ones. So yeah, I mean, that would be my short support for your point. I mean, that's the insidiousness of it, that if you can convince people that they're arriving at something naturally and you are influencing or controlling that process, you have that much more power, for sure.
So let's stay on some propaganda and maybe something. I'm glad that you talk about this not arriving at a conclusion that we created, but so when you hear things like defund the police, like what exactly do you know that to be about? And then do you think that's something that's effective or could be effective for us?
Well, out of respect to some folks that I know who are doing this work much more seriously than I am, I would at least want to acknowledge that I'm by no means an expert on the nuances of this debate as it's going on around the country. But whether it's folks I know, like Lawrence Grand Prix and Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle right down the road, in Baltimore, or the good people at PACA, Pan African Community Action in DC, there are discussions and debates around how this is being defined and used. My humble point would simply be that anything that discourages or detracts from a recognition that we need political power is on some level going to be, from my humble perspective, a negative. So to the extent that anyone would argue that defund the police is not part of a larger project towards abolition, or not part of a larger project towards political power, or not part of a larger project of redistribution, then to me, it's of less value. Now, again, I know there are different ways of dealing with this and people are approaching it very differently. And there is certainly going to be, and I'm sure, an attempt by the well-funded nonprofit establishment to defang this effort. And I've already seen in the press, there's been a lot of discussion that defund the police is to be blamed for the rise in crime. Already they're doing that, and why we've already seen that states like Maryland that initially did defund the police have already refunded that money back to the police as a response. So again, that's why I'm saying if we don't have political power, the claims don't necessarily mean anything. Even in Maryland, I believe the defunding was only like 20 million. It was something not substantive, that big a deal. And then it went back, and then I know Biden is increasing it even beyond, nationally. So, but my point is, if they can defund and then refund and then double fund and whatever they want, it doesn't mean anything. Right. And if a rise in crime, which has everything to do with pandemics and poverty and joblessness and fear, etc., is blamed on a defund process, if they're able to do that and then just again refund it, it does nothing but further confuse the issue. So, I think, yeah. So, I don't know.
That's right. You on mute, Asafo? Mute.
Okay. So we're going to move to discussing a little bit of economics. Now, you contributed to a report titled "Black Entrepreneurship's Lethal Pre-Existing Condition: The Wealth Divide During the COVID Crisis." I'm going to share this. Give me one moment. I'm going to go ahead and put this up here. Oh, hold on. Okay.
Yeah, you got to click that out. They have a pretty slick thing to try to get you on that site. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about some of the key findings in this report and what the findings, what does it say or portend, if you will, regarding Black entrepreneurship and this emphasis on Black entrepreneurship as a solution for our collective problems?
To me, and a big shout out to Diedrich and Jamie in particular, and Joshua for putting in a bulk of the work on this. But the the short version is that it's, to me, a great summary of an overall explanation as to why claims that we should become Black business owners is insufficient and doesn't work. It's not a radical analysis by any means, but it's just a good basic summary as to the history and reasons for it. So, for instance, I think my favorite statistic, and I'm forgetting the exact numbers, but it was that between 1992 and 2012, more than 2 million Black businesses were created. And that only allotted for or accounted for a 0.3% capture of the national revenue spent in business in its entirety. So in other words, any claim that Black people don't have financial literacy or a business acumen, and that's one reason why Black people are poor or don't do well in business, is nonsense. So this was not a lack of effort. Like I said, more than 2 million businesses were created, but the reasons that these businesses don't do well and that they only capture, I think, 0.3% of all the money spent has a number of different reasons behind it, starting with anti-Blackness, white supremacy, of course, starting with capital accumulation in white America, including white dominance over the largest segments of the economy, that relegate Black businesses to gig economy, social services, healthcare service, stuff like that, but not the dominant ownership of manufacturing, tech, whatever. Certainly, elite financing. So the report just basically explains that, or summarizes that, if you don't have if you don't have access to capital, if you don't have access to high, low interest, high sum funding from financial services and banks, if you don't have a whiteness bump that just because of whiteness boosts the value of your property and business, if you don't have all of these things, you can't use business to catch up. And it's not an issue of Black people being lazy or stupid or financially illiterate or not willing to shop with one another. None of that. It's about there are a whole series of structural reasons why Black businesses can't be used to overturn inequality, and why even white business, I would even argue this isn't explicitly stated in the report, but it should be understood implicitly, if not otherwise, that even the biggest white businesses haven't been able to take care of all of white people in a white supremacist, pro-white capitalist society. So even they who haven't suffered enslavement and colonial relations and Jim and Jane Crow, even they can't use business to boost. Jeff Bezos hasn't helped all of white people. He doesn't even help his own white workers, much less the black ones. So again, the report to me is just a perfect short summary of all the reasons why these claims about black people becoming entrepreneurs and business owners is fantasy.
There's this I'm sure the other report that talked about 10 the things that we get wrong about closing the racial wealth gap, like the 10 things we get wrong. And from my experience, I've seen that one could get one of them, but then they won't understand the other one. So they might say, oh, entrepreneurship is not going to work, but you do need this, or you do need to buy a house. And I find that people struggle for that. But in terms of the wealth gap, so one of those reports said that like black families on average have $17,000 in wealth. White folks are 171,000. And that was pre-COVID. So we know those numbers are probably going down in either more.
And Diedrich Muhammad has reset the number. He said if you something about how they count depreciating assets, but he in his breakdown, it's even I think closer to 6,000 in net wealth for Black America. I'm forgetting the details, but that's how he concludes it. So, but in either way, it's not a lot of money. Even if it was 17,000, that's just not a lot of money.
And what do you? I don't want to make you a prophet, but what do you suppose will happen as that number gets closer to zero?
Well, it's predicted to. I mean, one of the studies that I cite in my work has that by 2053, 2053 is the zeroing of Black wealth or the point at which white America becomes a minority. So it's either 2053 or 2030 something. But within a generation or so here, a couple, a lifespan or so, Black people are targeting or headed towards zeroing of whatever wealth we have. If massive change doesn't happen. So it's not about what I speculate. Other more advanced economists have already laid this out. My point, just a point of emphasis is always that it doesn't matter the wealth. What matters is the political power. So it's and that's part of the hustle that has been encouraged that we not focus on, so that we constantly chase money and wealth, which we can never catch up. But always losing sight of the fact that our only real power or potential power is an organized political strength, which would make current wealth moot, which would make redistribution of existing wealth possible, or redefining wealth possible, et cetera, and so forth. But anyway, so that would be my point. It doesn't matter if it's 17,000, 6,000, or zero. The wealth we have is useless if we don't have political power.
Yeah, that it brings me to a point. Now, I didn't write the question I'm about to ask you. I don't have it written down. This is something that just came to mind as you were speaking just now, or comment rather. I guess one of the serious problems that I'm seeing in our community is a lack of understanding about the class dynamics within our community, and the fact that we have this idea of Black solidarity, but we're having it fed to us by the same forces that benefit and I guess seem to want to use the Black masses as cannon fodder for their own personal aims. There's a book that we read in our book club called Knocking the Hustle by Lester Spence. And he talks about the wealth gap within the Black community being much more stark, much more of a gap than the gap between black and white. So he's saying the wealth gap between the I guess the black elites or the black bourgeoisie and the rest of us is presumably even worse than the
Honestly,
gap
I haven't. Does he break down the numbers, and do you have them in front of you by any chance? Does he break
I don't have
down?
the book. I don't have the book
But
in
does
front
he
of me.
detail it? I gotta get it. I gotta check that out. But
there was later on there was a report that came out at the end of last year from I believe the Federal Reserve that kind of breaks down the wealth in different like black wealth, like Latinx wealth, others, and what have you. And when you look at, and this is across the board for all the groups, but you have the majority of the wealth being in the hands of a small elite group, with the rest of the group being relatively wealthless. And the same goes for black people. The wealth, the minimal wealth that we do have is mostly possessed or hoarded, if you will, by a small black elite, and the rest of us are pretty much wealthless. And I think much of the solutions that are being propagated or promulgated are those solutions that, if we embrace them, would have more of a benefit, more of a net benefit for the black bourgeoisie, and even if it really doesn't benefit the rest of us at all. I guess the question is, would you agree with that? Or
I mean, definitely. And I was just trying to look at it myself, that report, to see if I could find those numbers, but I haven't found the section yet, because I see where it breaks down black versus white, but I haven't found in there where they break down the wealth gaps within those communities. Because I would definitely want to see an update on those numbers. I remember anyway, but yeah, it does make sense. It certainly is the case, and this is why. And even in something that we were looking at on my show earlier this morning was that, and it's sort of actually the part of the argument about my buying power argument, is that we have explained to us our financial condition by the handful of black folks who are doing relatively well because of this ignoble, tiered, class-based, white-based system. So we were talking about Roland Martin and John Hope Bryant, in a segment that they label as being about black financial literacy and black business and black economics. It's sponsored by a white social media app that Bryant is a board member for. Bryant himself is fronting as a black-owned economic consultant company that is funded, as we showed, or his website shows, by dozens of the biggest white financiers and corporations in the world, so that he can give free financial consultation to black communities. These are who's telling us how to do this. That's what's, I mean, it's like the lottery winner coming and telling you to play the lottery because he won too. Like, you know what I mean? It's illogical. But because so much of our black commercial press is caught up in promoting this, I use Roland Martin as an example, but he's just one example. So much of the conversation in our public sphere is dominated by this nonsense. And that's why it's so confusing, and that's what makes the propaganda so effective, and that's why our media environment is constructed as it is, to deliver this kind of psychological warfare. I mean, that's what it's designed to do. Specifically, is there in their own language, to develop counterinsurgency tactics to prevent a black revolution. I mean, that's in the language of the people who put this together. So we don't even have to speculate about what they're doing. But the way it plays out in this more sophisticated, nuanced time we're in is to have Roland Martin and John Hope Bryant have this conversation about, Black empowerment, which is really, as I was calling it, white economic predation.
You Leah in the comment says Bryant's Operation Nope. He has that Operation Hope, Operation Nope. So
that's it.
So we
shout out to Leah Boggs. Yeah, that's it.
I think the last time we talked about like this concept.
Now her name is Leah Boggs Jackson. Does that mean she got married recently? Congratulations.
I thought I've always saw Jackson, but maybe.
Oh, maybe I didn't. Okay, that might be my bad. I'm late to that. My bad.
You know, married
congratulations.
You know, married a woman off and stuff, bro.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe, I mean, anyway, I apologize.
Or she said, yeah, I think she said, yeah, I think she just got married.
See,
there we go. Shout out to Mr. Jackson.
All right. There it is. Right.
So we talked about this like non-confrontational thing, I think in a previous interview. And so you see constant political diversions results into this anti-African rhetoric where we blaming ourselves. But it's almost like this non-confrontational energy, like, right? So yeah, he just stole all your money. Okay, well, we'll just work with the pennies we got. Like, what are your thoughts about this? Like, even in our most pseudo militant groups that say we're about to do this, it's like it's still non-confrontational. Can you kind of like elaborate on that energy?
Well, I mean, I can only think that look, I admit this for myself that to consider what I think has to actually be done is scary. Now that doesn't mean that I or we aren't willing to do it. We do a lot of things that scare us, but it's scary, and I think it encourages a certain level of pessimism, as my man Nathan Connolly points out, a political pessimism. I'm not hating on Afro pessimism. I'm saying political pessimism, and because people think we can't beat this. We can't fight this. And we see what happens, consciously or not. We're aware of what happens to the people that struggle. We are aware, even unconsciously, of our political prisoners. We are aware of our assassinations and all that comes with that. It's hard work. If you read George Jackson, if you read Blood in My Eye, shout out to him in Black August. If you read that, I can't argue that he's wrong in anything on any page. But he's describing a scary process. He's talking about guerrilla warfare. He's talking about streets being shut down. He's talking about the flow of this country being stopped. So that's scary. So it's easier to say, just get my money together. I'm going to save my money. I'm going to invest. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to support your business, encourage you to support my business. We can start to, pump our chests out a little bit we can put our gear on and our flags, and we can rock out, and we can be like black and our fists up. But if all we're ultimately saying is spread some money that we have around, or buy my thing and I buy your thing, and we're not challenging for power. We're not threatening the system. We're not going anywhere. And that's why, I think that so much effort is put towards promoting that, and that's why in our and as I said, our public sphere is dominated by that. Mm-hmm. Everywhere we go, our messaging is get your money right, support your sister, support your brother, and but that's not a revolution. That's not a struggle. That's not going to win.
Yeah. I also find it like interesting. We also talked about before, like how people are like staunch at disagreeing on things that they don't even read. They won't read your book. They won't read any of the research. They won't read any data and be like, I just disagree. And like, well, in my personal experience, although it's 40 million Black people here, it's just like this, I call it a anti-intellectual response, but it's like, there's this like this, I don't even want to know. Right. I don't even want to know that what I'm doing is not working, or what I'm doing is not logical. So,
but again, I understand that too. And I mean, even even in my book, I cite one example, but I think there are other ways to approach this. That point out that there are studies that show that even when people are confronted with what they acknowledge to be new information that's correct, if it causes a core fundamental change in their ideological worldview, they will abandon it. So this is in part the power of propaganda and psychological warfare. This is why the Germans called it worldview warfare. You construct a worldview. So even, look, I admitted this morning, like it's frustrating. I did have fantasies that my work would have a different level of an impact, even as I understand, even as I include work in it that would discount or discourage that conclusion. But the reality is, even if people did read my book, even if it was written better than I wrote it, even if it was better, even if it was better than than I did it, the argument requires a core shift in ideology, which at least the study I cite, and there are others that support this, means people aren't going. They're not going to take it. It's so. And again, to my previous point, if it's been said to me millions of times, well, Jared, if you're right, then what do we do? Because what they're really saying is, Jared, if you're right, that means I have to go to another level of struggle that I don't really want to go to. So I don't want you to be right, because if you're right, then I can't. The fantasy I have about making money and chilling and living like the people I see on TV isn't going to happen. And I'm saying, if we want the world to change, that cannot happen. So
I want to just take a quick step back. Now, you introduced during this conversation buying power. Now, for maybe the one or two people in our viewing audience who may not know what the myth of Black buying power is, could you just give us maybe like a minute, just a quick summary of what the myth of Black buying power is?
The myth is, as is reported constantly, again this year right now, that Black people have $1 trillion. That if we used it with greater levels of financial literacy, we could overturn our inequality. And I'm simply saying that we're not simply saying. I think I've demonstrated factually that it's not true. That's not what it means. That's not what's being done here, and that this is promoted as part of a tradition of encouraging Black people away from political organization and power. So start a business, do better with your money, and you don't need to radically engage the system. You don't need to look for revolution. You can, well, as Nixon said, redefine Black power as Black capitalism. And so that's the shortest I can do it. Yeah. Okay.
So when you brought up Nixon, and that's fine, because that segues into my next question. Could you elaborate a little bit more about the role of the Nixon administration in this concept of pushing Black power to be represented by Black business ownership, entrepreneurship, and things like that?
Well, first, I just want to quickly say, as I should have said in the last answer, that buying power as a phrase originally and only still really only means the ability to spend money on certain advertised goods. Mm-hmm. It's a marketing advertising mechanism to redirect ad revenue and to capture ad revenue. It has nothing to do with an assessment of economic condition. And even the reports that people refer to all the time say that, but people don't actually read the reports, and the journalism that covers these reports that needs to promote the myth of buying power so that it can capture more ad revenue from the almost $600 billion spent annually by corporations to advertise. They misreport the data, don't read the reports, don't understand what they're reading. The journalists themselves, I would argue, don't understand what they're reading and just regurgitate myth to tell stories that will, maybe get clicks, but have nothing to do with an economic analysis. I would argue this is part of a result designed by the Nixon administration, who were very overt in saying that they wanted to redefine Black power away from Kwame Ture or Stokely Carmichael and what he meant, and redefine it specifically as Black capitalism and Black mainstream politicians. So, and he literally laid out a platform and a plan that was meant to attract Black leadership to support his campaign and his administration, with the promise of supporting Black business and funneling money through Black business that would nominally help Black communities. And even from the beginning, the more or less conservative Black leaders that engaged him on that notion said themselves that it was nonsense. So never mind the radicals and revolutionaries who always knew it was nonsense. So the entire Black political spectrum at one point had even actually realized that Nixon was running game, but that mythology, that promoted tale was still able to take hold, largely because a Black commercial media class that makes money from promoting the myth picked it up and supported it. And that's, again, why to this day we have such a hard time penetrating that wall of nonsense with any kind of reality.
In other words, to quote the words from Andrew Young, we have to move from civil rights to silver rights.
Well, he's part of the problem, and he has long been part of the problem, and that's why he keeps quoting and referencing Dr. King, but King was pretty clear, even in his own lifetime, that Andy Young and Jesse Jackson were not, following in his footsteps politically. But that's part of the game to grab the bag from corporations. That's what Andy Young and Jesse Jackson turned Dr. King's truly revolutionary program into. And that's why they do what they do. And that's why Andrew Young helped bring JP Morgan Chase and $40 million to Killer Mike's Greenwood Bank project. And that's why he keeps promoting this nonsense about silver rights, which is absurd. Patently absurd and diametrically opposed to Dr. King. He should be ashamed of himself.
Jerry, I meant to actually text and ask you this, but speaking of the Black capitalism, so we are, our think tank is studying Collective Courage by Jessica Nimhard.
Gordon Nimhard.
Mm-hmm. But she said something about like Hoover had a Black capitalism push before. Have you seen it? I couldn't.
No. Hoover. Listen, everybody on some level or another has pushed this. I only point to Nixon because my book was meant to be relatively short, and he played a particularly prominent role. The reason I picked Nixon more than anybody else is because, and I'm actually glad to get the chance to explain, is because Nixon came along at a time where not only was it was like at the height of the anti-capitalist Black revolutionary fervor and the use of Black capitalism as a mechanism against that politics. So, but no, he was by no means the only one or the first. I was just trying to point to certain key moments where there was a sort of a pivot that most impacts today. But Hoover, others absolutely had a Black capitalist program. Truman, I mean, everybody was sort of, because everybody was encouraging, this idea. Look, we don't want you to pick up a gun, so we want you to pick up, if maybe a Bible, maybe a plow, something for the fields, or maybe in this case, some kind of bank statement, pick up a bank statement, but not a gun. And that, or maybe even more threatening, don't pick up a radical political analysis and organizational effort. Don't do that. Just focus on your money. It's been the tradition since our ancestors were nominally freed. I mean, that's been the whole point. Again, even why Lincoln co-signed the development of the Freedmen's Bank was understood specifically at the time to be a mechanism to trick Black people into thinking you can learn thrift and banking. I mean, Marissa Baradaran, we were just using it this morning, and again, I was joking. I don't know if she's politically following or even remember writing her own book at this point, given some of the interviews she's done recently, but she left us the work. So I don't care, actually. Hey, we don't have to agree. I don't care what she's doing. And all respect to her, I wish her well. She gave us the work, and the work is good, and the work is accurate up to a certain point, particularly in terms of some of the nuts and bolts of the history of Black banking. But what she shows accurately is that Lincoln said, give them a bank so that we can teach them financial literacy and thrift, and tell them to save money to buy land that we politically gave to white folks.
Yeah.
I mean, the hustle is tremendous. Yeah. And on some level, look, obviously I hate them, but on some level, I'm impressed. I mean, this is just the mass manipulation of millions of people who are potentially threatening to your life. That's impressive. Because they knew fully well, we better trick them with some banking, or they're coming with the gun, the knife. They're going to poison us. They're going to slit our throats. They're going to climb the walls. By the way, I hope people realize all this zombie stuff in TV and films, that's what the metaphor is. It's not like real zombies. It's the threat of enslaved Africans, even poor white folks, realizing what the hell's going on and coming over the walls with no fear of death to get what's ours. That's why they keep making these movies. That's what they're really scared of. That's the virus they're scared of. Not, Corona, COVID is horrible. Yeah. But the real virus they're scared of is, revolution. And they're like, man, if we don't deal with this, they're going to come get us, man. They're going to come climbing over the wall with the pitchforks and all this. They say it in their own literature. Yeah. Anyway, so that's why all this effort is being done. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No. I actually not so surprised. When I saw that Baradaran was on Biden's economic some kind of team, I was like, this is gonna be a little rough. So I got this.
And by the way, he didn't listen to her. He didn't even listen to her. He brought in all of the Obama 2008 Wall Street crashers. That's who he brought in to do the real financial work for him.
Yeah, it was clear that the only reason that she was even put on that team was to placate the leftist segments of the Democratic base.
Hey, look, when we met years ago, I joked with her and I told her, and I should find it in here somewhere. She got one line in the book that takes a shot at communism. And I told her, I joked with her to her face. I was like, you wrote a great book, but that one line is going to save you. That's what's going to save you and give you the career that you're probably looking for. Because it's the one line that says, look, I know I'm talking bad about banks and capitalism, but don't get it twisted. I still want, a big time book. I still want a career.
Speaker's fees.
Yeah.
The $25,000 speaker's fees.
I should find it again in here. I'm gonna find it while we're sitting here. But anyway, she said it. It was a funny line. I was like, "Look at you taking a shot at communism." I was like, "Ah!"
And I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to bet she added that in after the book was complete.
Hey, even I've had editors, say to me, "You sure you want to say that?" And I was like, "Yeah." In fact, I wanted to say something worse.
They went to her and told her, "Look, you might want to put something in to let them know,
I remember her putting something in here too that it was kind of like it was some jabs at like a Black nationalist or Pan-Africanist. Like I also felt like she wasn't really like she's kind of like I don't know, chastising capitalism, but still kind of embracing it. Like it could work.
So look, this might be the line. This might be it right here. As the world wars shifted to the Cold War, communist regimes abroad began to highlight stories of U.S. racism in their propaganda. Like that's a little subtle line. 131.
Okay.
And then she talks about on 132, to defeat communism, America needed to tell the world a story of American racial progress. It was decided to focus on telling the story of the Black elite. As part of a public relations blitz on race, the U.S. Information Service released promotional pamphlets called "The Negro in American Life." Anyway, but that first one was the line I think I was pointing to, where I was like, that's all you needed. You refer to the communist regime and their propaganda, and that lets them know, that might have been the one. There's one other reference. I'm gonna look at it real quick. But anyway, I didn't mean to sidetrack you.
No, I'm that page. I marked up that page too. Like, so I think that's very interesting. One thing I do want to ask too. Like, I know Bro Diallo was having this miseducation of Pan-Africans or some kind of. It's a good segment. But my question was, so you're a professor at a HBCU. If there was this like Black consciousness class that you were, or course that you was teaching, knowing the stuff that's going on with YouTubers and all this other stuff, what would be some of the themes or the most important things you will have to educate our people on? Like, what will be things that you would definitely include in that course?
Oh man. Wow, just broadly speaking, a Black consciousness course, that's deep. I mean, everything from the works of Dr. Clark and Marimba Ani to George Jackson and Assata Shakur. I mean, I think that for me, if I was to pick sort of 4 people, that covers everything. In fact, I think those 4 people would pretty much, if I had, they would cover pretty much, broadly speaking, everything. But essentially my point, and the way I would fuse that together is, my point would be that on the one hand, we have to understand our Africanness and our relationship to an African diaspora. But on the other hand, if we don't have political power, if we don't make that material, if we don't make that original understanding material, for instance, if we don't read Diop's Federated States book, and start to blend the immaterial with the material, we're wasting our time. So Diop wasn't just talking about understand your Africanness for the sake of understanding your Africanness. He wasn't saying understand the African origins of civilization just for the sake of understanding it. He lays it out. He says the basis of the purpose of that basic understanding is so that you engage the political project of capturing political power over your territory, land, and resources. That's what the Federated States is about. So that would be my whole thing. Like that's the whole point of consciousness raising. I don't want to just raise your consciousness for any vague reason. I want consciousness to get raised to engage materially, like Malcolm said, in this world, on this day, in this life. What's up? So I want my ancestors, I want to appreciate my ancestors, but when I talk to my ancestors, I'm like, what do you have for me now? Because when I come and meet you, we're gonna have that talk. Like what's his name? When I reference Wakanda, I'm talking about like when my man showed up, he had that talk with his father. He was like, what the hell? What did y'all do? Sorry, I'm getting a little amped, but that's how I feel when I talk to my ancestors. I'm like, what are you doing to prepare me and us to fight now? Because when I come see you, and we all know I'm coming, I mean, we all gonna be there. When I get there, that's the conversation I want. Everybody sit down and explain to me why we haven't manifested more of a fight down there. Because that's anyway. So. Sorry,
well, I think it's quite generous, very generous, to presume that type of class will even be signed off on at a HBCU in the first place. Okay.
No, we would have to give it some other name. That's all. We have to label it.
Popular education will be the name. Popular education.
Well, I went to a HBCU. My undergrad is at Morris College in Sumter, South Carolina, and I remember when, oh my God, I remember when John McWhorter's Losing the Race book came out. Oh man. You wouldn't believe the almost missionary zeal that the administrators and half the professors had. They were literally shoving that book down our throat. oh, you got to read this, you got to read it, you got to read it, and it was terrible. I actually read the book, and I concluded that everyone from the president at the time, rest in peace, Dr. Lund Richardson, but from him on down, I don't really even think they actually even read this book. I think they went off the title and moved on from there, because the book, I don't want to get off topic, but the book itself ignores the basic canons of research, social science. I mean, it's basically a polemic, I would presume paid for by the right-wing white supremacist Manhattan Institute. But none of
that he was their spokesperson. I don't know if he still works with them, but he was their spokesperson for a long time. And that's what they do. And listen, what can I say, man? Some of these salaries are public information. The last report that I saw, president of Morgan State, all due respect, making $500,000 a year. President Howard, I think, is making over $1 million. There's some salaries getting thrown around out here. And I know relative to the presidents at Harvard and Yale and whatever, they may pale in comparison, but relative to the I think roughly $35,000 annual salary that the average worker, regardless of race, makes in this country, it's pretty good money. And I don't even know, maybe if I was, I've never seen that many zeros on a check with my name. So I don't know. Maybe I'd be saying we got to read John McWhorter too, if somebody was saying you're going to get $500,000 every year. I'm not a perfect man. I'm not a perfect revolutionary, but but again, to your point, HBCUs are not revolutionary institutions. So even to be fair, and I'm joking about the South. Well, I'm not necessarily joking, but to be fair, even if that's required here, they're not revolutionaries. None of them signed up to do the work that we want to do. So I can't be mad at them for that. Like Amiri Baraka even used to say that you can't be mad at them for doing what they're paid to do.
Right.
Not mad at them. We just have to understand and respond accordingly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So,
like Frank Wilderson said, I don't hate the police officer. I don't hate police violence. I hate the police. So I'm not mad at the cop. Metaphorically speaking, I'm mad at the institution. She's doing what they're paid to do. What do I expect?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can agree with that. And I kept that, even through my matriculation through Morris, I somewhere back in the back of my mind, I had to keep reminding myself, like, this isn't, I'm asking too much of these administrators and a lot of these professors to really think on a more militant, even a revolutionary mindset or platform. So, I just, kept on reminding myself throughout my matriculation, it's just, okay, whenever they give me the assignment, okay, this is BS, okay, but I'm going to do it just so I can, get through the class so I can, move on. But to get back to the subject matter, we're all going to be saved. We're all going to be fine as long as we try to do our best to replicate the Black Wall Streets, right? We need to build more Black Wall Streets, right, Jared? Is that what we need to do?
Hey, listen, I really do shout out to my man Two Black and the Black Miss podcast. I think they did some great work on this. Even shout out to him and him coming on my show and the work I think we did on it. I think we did, pretty good. But the propaganda around Black Wall Street has been tremendous, and this year being the 100th anniversary is we've just seen it taken to new levels. The key points for me on that I think that have really, I think, been exposed but not really discussed in all of this is that one, the origins of Black Wall Street are misunderstood. that, to the point you all raised already, this was largely mostly a Black elite. I think two Black in them identified that no more than 5% of the Black population was involved at this level of economics, that the economics on Black Wall Street were all tied to the broader and bigger wealth of the white oil industry that surrounded Tulsa. So it was all a subsidiary of that. And that what destroyed Black Wall Street ultimately was not white vigilante violence, because after 1921, they built it back up to being even bigger and better in the 1940s. And what destroyed it was not white vigilante violence, but, to my point, going back as always, was political power. Rezoning, redistricting, the driving of a highway down the middle of the Greenwood district. That's political power.
Right.
That's what determines that. And that's what destroyed Black Wall Street. So so the point I'll just stop here on is that the violence of the whites in the 20s has been used as a propagandized mask of the fact that at its origins, we're talking about a highly class bifurcated reality, where a handful of Black people did okay while most were toiling as laborers at the bottom of the economy. And then, more importantly, it denies the fact, that propaganda denies the fact that it's political power that determines all of this, and that the whole 1940, the rebuild and redestruction of it, has been totally ignored. I mean, it's as much as I hate it, I'm impressed that they could do this. And it's unfortunately a lot of Black, going back to my other point, well-funded Black entrepreneurs and spokespeople who continue to promote all of this stuff.
Right. So as we wrap up, make sure you get your questions in. I want to ask you this. Backstage, we talked a little bit about pocket watching with JT, and he's been able to hammer down a couple of these financial literacy experts and gurus, and like you said, y'all have put out powerful content on breaking down myths. So what do you think about this Tulsa fund that Jay Morrison has, and some of these celebrities? Like, even I saw a video of Carrie Hilson talking about it. she was like stumbling, and it almost looked like somebody had a gun to the camera, and was like, say this, and she was like and yeah, and then it was over. But and also there's an update that JT got on how much money they lost, and
oh, really?
more marketing, advertising they spending, and he's like I'll just let you go. But what do you think about the Tulsa fund?
First of all, I subscribe to this dude's channel, and he seems to have, I mean, he's doing pretty big numbers. I hope he's I hope on some level he's having a positive impact. But listen, Jay Morrison's thing, I'll summarize it this way. Anyone who claims that by paying for their classes, they will teach you how to become wealthy, that's a hustle. That's just a hustle. That's just not, that can't be real. That just can't be. So I would discourage anyone from listening to much else that he says about anything. But whether it's him or whether it's Hill Harper, people have been rebranding and or attaching themselves to this Black Wall Street thing to promote their own, whether it's a digital wallet and cryptocurrency nonsense, or Jay Morrison's whatever his plan is with Black Wall Street. I mean, it's all, I don't know what it's all just it's nonsense. I mean, but it's part of a tradition. I guess I would just put it this way: it's part of a tradition that has been supported and promoted for a long time. They're not the first, they won't be the last, but there's nothing that they could offer substantively to defend the positions they're taking. And anyone who looks under the hood at all will see that it's nonsense. So I'm sure if JT, who says he's a real accountant and understands the economy at all, anyone who understands it at all and who is at all honest will be able to see that these people's claims are ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, to a broader point, I think we need to always be suspicious of anybody who, within this broader movement, we need to be suspicious of anybody who ties a solution to their way of making money. You know, this idea of, okay, well, you buy this, you support this, you give money to this is how we'll get free. And, you know, we always have to ask ourselves constantly, you know, is this person promoting this because it'll actually work, or are they promoting it because this is how they make their money? You know, we constantly have to ask that question.
Well, it definitely doesn't work. So it only leaves us to conclude that they're doing it to make money. Mm-hmm. You know, even in I saw one of Jay Morrison's videos where he talked about he was promoting himself by saying, I have built wealth, lost wealth, and built it back again. And if you pay me for my 72 course, you know, 72 lesson course or whatever, you'll see how you can make money. And I'm saying, so you're promoting yourself as someone who, you know, builds and loses wealth, you know, I guess regularly. But this is your pathway to collective and sustainable wealth for the community. I mean, it's just on its surface. And now, you know, obviously, if we get into the details of their claims, we could break it down more, you know, specifically. But essentially, their model is save, invest, and give him money, and that's how you'll you know. But listen, the propaganda model also works because they don't have to engage. They don't have to even acknowledge someone who disagrees with them, largely because they have, in some cases, large and narrowly, specifically defined audiences who, largely because of the way our media environment has been intentionally designed, aren't confronted with views with which they disagree. You know, so it works. So, you know, I admit, again, some frustration around it, thinking that, you know, I might be able to intervene here in a little bit of a different way when the book came out. But the reason I bring it up is as a lesson, again, just to myself. You know, it's the system does work. The system I've been writing and criticizing for a while does work. Does work. So even against me, or anyone else, and even this brother JT with a significantly larger following, clearly isn't making a dent or having the impact we would want either. So
I want to ask you one more thing, and I want to get to the comments and questions that we have in the chat. Also, we want to discuss maybe some policy solutions, what have you. But one last thing I want us to cover really quickly is this whole idea. Another one of these things that you hear probably more often, and I think maybe to a certain extent, maybe the foundation of the other myths, is this idea of the poverty mindset or the culture of poverty. Oh, Black people are where they are because we have a poverty mindset. If we think more positively and, think with a millionaire mindset, we'll become millionaires, or some ridiculous nonsense. I just want to know your thoughts on that.
I mean, first of all, on its face, it's absurd if you look at the role inheritance plays in wealth transfer. Are we suggesting that brand new babies born to these families are born with a millionaire mindset that we can't even cultivate as full-grown adults over generations? I mean, that's just one, I don't even know who the famous example would be anymore. It used to be like a Paris Hilton. Was Paris Hilton born with a millionaire mindset? I mean, because all she did was get, handed some money. Most of the people with wealth either are handed that wealth or are handed the basis of that wealth, or have the political access to regenerate that wealth. Since 2008, the biggest financial institutions in this country use the political apparatus to give themselves $29 trillion. They just made that money.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by made is they didn't go out and earn it. They just literally created it and put it in their digital accounts. That's political power. That's not they weren't born with it. They if there was a mindset they were born with, it's imperialist. You know, but it's not some again. This is part of the propaganda that Nixon and others weaponized. I would argue John H. Johnson in the black context weaponized against his own community to say that if you improve your mindset, you don't have to do anything else. You don't have to organize. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to risk anything. You certainly don't have to George Jackson your way to freedom. You don't have to do any of that. So that's what I'm saying. Like this is it's just patently absurd. And that to me is another red flag, by the way. People who start talking about pay me for something to get rich or change your mindset to get rich. I'm already like the flag is up. The hands on my pockets, you know what I mean? Like, check it, like I'm
make sure
looking
you still have your wallet.
That's it. My car keys are still there. My shoes are still on. Like I'm looking for everything because I'm like, you can't be serious right now. And you can't study this country's history. You certainly can't study the economy and conclude that this is about people's mindsets and that's just not how these things work.
Yeah, I think one of the Waltons blew through a couple bags and they still got $1 billion. Like,
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm like, Biden's son can, the one that survived can do all kinds of shady stuff. And he, I mean, other, I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't matter. But this is sort of the point though, like going back to the earlier example that I used with the Freedmen's Bureau Bank. Roland Martin's buddy is telling us on his show that if you have the right mentality, you would appreciate the history of the Freedmen Bureau's bank and invest and save, etc. When they said themselves, we're going to give you a bank so that we can distract you from the fact that we're telling you to save money so that you can buy land that we've already given to white folks. That is the baseline for this everything else. We have already politically given everything to the handful of white folks that are meant to have it all and rule. Now, everyone else will tell you to get where they've got, you should do this and you should do that and you should do this, and ignore the fact that we just gave this to them. I mean, it's crazy. And Lincoln, they said it, they were acknowledging this. We're doing this so they don't raise questions. We're doing this because we've freed them so they can go to work and do the same work we were doing under enslavement, but we'll call them free so they don't rebel. Because when we were enslaving them outright, all they did was fight. And I know the movies make it seem like it only happened every once in a while, or it took some special Django Negro to do it. But all it was all day, every day, fight, slash a throat, poison, burn something, run away, fight. They were like, listen. And even the white historians of enslavement have written this, that by the 1850s, certainly, Black people understood slavery as an institution and were fighting to destroy the institution, whereas initially they might have just been looking to escape, find a family, a relative, a lost one. By the 1850s, in the end, they were like, okay, we get it. I can't just get my cousin. I can't just get my daughter. I can't just get myself free. This institution will be collapsed. So the white folks said, read Machinery of Control in Aptheker's Negro volume history of whatever he did. The chapter Machinery of Control. He talks about free them on our terms so they don't get free on theirs. And then we got to just start feeding them mythology so they don't pick up the gun. I know you're doing the same work on the field you just were enslaved on, but I'm calling you free now. And if you save some money and if you work hard and you get enough bales of cotton, you can buy your way out. You can buy your land. You can get free. And it never happens. And it never happens. So we just get new versions of that today with sophisticated. We got pretty black people in fancy clothes and nice looking videos. You got Spike Lee, Spike jointing his cryptocurrency stuff. You got Jim Jones on Instagram talking about get a digital this. You got Hill Harper, talking about, look at me, I'm a Harvard with I went to school with Obama. I'm on a TV show. Crypto is the new freedom. Mm-hmm. And it's literally the same playbook. It's crazy, man. It's wild. It's wild out here.
Get a bag. Time to get a bag.
Get a bag.
So what about okay, so let's move on to discussing, I guess, to the extent that we can in this context, what solutions or policy recommendations what policies would you recommend that would have the most impact in Black communities? That's the question. What policies would you recommend?
Well, the only one policy, well, maybe not the only one. Well, as a policy, the first thing off the top of the list has to be cancellation of all debt. Mm. I don't even care about a $15 minimum wage. I don't care about so-called reparations. In this sense, I don't want to be misunderstood here, but I'll just say it that way. I don't care about Black businesses getting support. I don't care about anything. Cancel all debt. First, point blank, step one. If there's no debt, even if you have a low income, even if you have, not a lot of money in the bank or whatever, it doesn't matter because you don't owe anybody anything. Mm-hmm. And your school's paid for, your house is paid for, your car is paid for. I used to say maybe I would say, a car note wouldn't be covered under this because then, you got people running out quickly and getting a Lamborghini or whatever. But I mean, but my point is even then, cover that too. I don't give a damn. Cover it. If you bought it before January 1, 2022, the debt is covered. You know what I mean? Like that's it. After January 1, you got to cover your car note. But maybe you don't care because you don't owe anything on your house anymore and your student debt is wiped out and your credit cards are paid for and your whatever is paid for. So that would be number one. I would even do that. Honestly, I think I would even say that before, which should be maybe number one, national health care, just all universal health care. And the only reason I say that is because if the debt is wiped out, even if you don't have health care, your medical bills are wiped out. So, I mean, it's you know what I mean? But those would be, wipe out the debt, national health care. Then we could get into some stuff about community control of police, some other things. Oh, I forgot my number one. What is really my number one? My real number one is policy that redistributes institutionally the gross domestic product of the country. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then the cancellation of debt, then universal health care. So those would be my three. And my point about GDP is that, again, in terms of it to me solves all debates and arguments over reparations. It solves, so many other things, because if the $20 trillion that we all help produce every year is redistributed, and maybe as an addendum, you say that the society is not allowed to have any billionaires. So you make as a law, you can't have billionaires. So by definition, all the wealth that is created cannot be accumulated to a handful. Then everything is covered. I'm saying, like, so many things automatically get better, like tomorrow, like tomorrow better. And that's what I want. Tomorrow better. Like, we don't have debt. We have health care, and the wealth we're all creating. And by that, I mean, like I got into a brief argument with a conservative radio host last year who said, so are you saying that the person who buys the pizza should make as much money from the exchange as the person who sells the pizza? I said, yeah. Because if the person can't afford to buy the pizza because the wealth has been so widely distributed unevenly, then owning the pizzeria is of no use.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the wealth generated for the owner of the pizzeria is demanding my contribution by buying the pizza. So when we all buy the pizza and the soda, we are and in addition with the people working and the people owning the pizzeria, all of us contribute to the wealth that's created. So why shouldn't all of us benefit?
Mm-hmm.
Then you start having all kinds of wild stuff starts to happen. Maybe the person who's working 8 hours a day in the pizzeria only has to work 2. And those other hours are picked up by someone else who didn't have a job. But now they only have to work 2 hours a day, not 8, not 10, 12, 18 hours a day like some of us are working now. Because so much wealth is being redistributed. And then think about it. If you only got to work 2 hours a day, then it's legit. Then everybody can legitimately say, when I show up to buy that pizza during your shift, you better be nice. You better be friendly. That joint better be hot. It better be some mozzarella on it. Shout out to Do the Right Thing.
Some mozzarella.
Mozzarella on it. Right? We can do that. And then the person working there is going to be like, I'm happy to do that. Of course, I'm going to do it right for you because I haven't been working all day. I'm not exhausted. My bills are covered. My health care is covered. I have no debt. My child's in a good school. There's no bullets flying outside because then maybe my fourth thing would be legalizing drugs. Then you got legal drugs that are taxed, held at the highest quality, and the cats that were running the industry already can now go into the dispensaries and work there as experts in the field and have healthcare benefits and do the same thing they were doing on the corner under threats of violence for fewer hours a day and more money.
So you're real quick about your point on reparations. The Barter and Build think tank, we have as one of our policy prescriptions reparations.
Sure.
For reparations, but my mind started slowly changing, and I started developing more of a nuanced thought on reparations when I saw your interview with Norm Finkelstein and what he said about the Jewish reparations.
I'm glad you reminded me of that. I got to go watch that again. Norm is deep, man.
Oh yeah, Norm has always been on point. I remember
people. Yeah, sorry.
Real quick, I remember when he had the infamous debate with Alan Dershowitz on Democracy Now, and that's when I first got introduced to Norm Finkelstein. I was like, yeah, this cat is solid. Okay, I learn more about this fella.
Norman Finkelstein. I mean, whatever people want to say, that dude is sharp. He's heavy, and he knows what he's talking about. And he has a memory like a steel trap. People should read The Holocaust Industry. You got to read that book. I mean, that book is not only for the information just on that history, but in terms of this discussion is essential. And that's why he concluded in our interview, for all the talk in Black communities about what Jews got reparations, Japanese got reparations, Japanese got like $20,000 a piece, man. They lost all that land on California that's worth billions of dollars today. They got 20 grand. And what did they have to suffer for that? 2 nuclear bombs that still impact their communities. And all they got was 20 grand. So the Jews nominally got millions. And none of that money, and he details it in The Holocaust Industry very well. None of that money went to the Holocaust victims and went to the worst of the worst of the worst. Like Kwame Ture used to say about us, the scum of our race. That's who the money went to for the Jews, and they still run that hustle to this day.
Norm,
and the Jews. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish your point.
I'm just saying the Jews that ultimately literally survived the death camps, he said gotten either nothing. He said his mother that survived one death camp, I think she got $600. And his father got, I think he got like 3,000 and maybe a couple hundred a month for some medical condition. But I was like, what? $6,000? You wiped out my entire, you wiped out my entire family. His parents were literally the only survivors of their wings of their whole family. Finkelstein had no relatives past his parents. You got to think about, even we got to think about that. No relatives past his parents because they all were wiped out. And you gave his mom $6,000. No wonder he's as angry as he is. I'm angry for him just talking about it, and I didn't go through that.
Yeah.
No wonder he talks like he talks and goes at Dershowitz like that. You punk.
He said that
probably punched Dershowitz in his mouth by now. Like, are you serious? Are you serious? All my mother got was $6,000.
He said that
and I'm just joking about the violence. I don't condone violence. I would not have swung on Dershowitz ever.
Okay.
Just want to be clear.
Yeah. So he said that the Jewish equivalents to the Al Sharptons got the bulk of the money or something like that.
That's what he said. That's right. That was his point. He was trying to warn black folks. Don't do it. And what he's really saying is you need political power. And that's sort of my point. So like I've been misunderstood and often and sometimes even misrepresented intentionally on this issue. I'm not against reparations. I'm not arguing black people don't deserve reparations. I'm speaking tactically and I'm speaking bigger. Tactically, white folks don't even want to give white folks COVID relief during a pandemic. The idea that they're going to sign off, which they would have to be involved in signing off, 2/3 of the country has to sign off on a constitutional amendment that would redirect wealth or resources just to black people. They don't want to, they can barely stop killing black people, much less give us this money. So my point is just tactically saying, look, it's not a question of what we deserve. And it's not that I'm wanting others to benefit off of my struggle. But the reality is, if you look around the country and look at the condition of white working people, other working people, nobody's in a position right now to turn around and look at the particulars of black people and say, we're going to give you all this money. They're just not going to do it. They're standing in food lines for hours to get fed. They're living under bridges all over the country. White folk in Howard County, Maryland, where I live, white folks are begging for money. White folks are begging for money. I never thought I would see that in this part of the state. I promise you. I'm not kidding. I never thought I would see white people begging for money in Howard County, Maryland. That's where we are. So the idea that they're going to turn around and at 2/3 a clip nationally say we're going to vote for give black people money when they won't even sign off on an HR 40 to study reparations. So that's what I'm saying. Tactically, we need something bigger and just say, if you redistribute the GDP, if you cancel all debt, get national health care. Yes, some white cracker racist is going to get his debt canceled and get health care. I get it. I get it. But so will you. And I think at this point, that's where we need to be. And then from that point, think about what we could organize once our debts were canceled and our health care was covered. Just as a step. Think about what could come next when you don't have to go to work all damn day and you don't have debt that's crushing you. And you might actually have time to not only read all these books, but then meet with other people who have read all these books and spend time organizing around all these books and building movements around all the, I mean, like that takes a lot. And if you don't have, so anyway, that's what I'm saying. Like for the after party political concept, I keep, semi-jokingly promoting those basic platform planks, and nobody's going to say no to that. Like, and then you say, well, what politician would vote for that? And then you only vote for that politician. And then all of a sudden, you're not voting for Democrats, you're not voting for Republicans, and you're maybe creating a new party or a new block within a party, and maybe voting for politicians that will not claim to be a squad, but would actually vote for something when they get a chance, as opposed to these folks. I don't know, or maybe some other level of heightened struggle occurs. But that's where I think we need to be.
Yeah, all that
focused,
stuff. Yeah, all that stuff sounds very good when you're tweeting it out, but if you don't even have the muscle to apply it in the real world, what good is a tweet? And
or if you're only tweeting it because you don't intend to apply the muscle in the real world, right. That's what the issue is.
Let's Geechee, if there's anything else, is there anything else you wanted to add, or we go?
No, I was I don't even want to go too much into it, but I thought about and I saw some things about the ADOS and Yvette Carnell, and when you talked about these people might benefit from some kind of payout, so you'll see why I like Ta-Nehisi, but we'll see why Ta-Nehisi Coates and all these other people are here, because they will benefit. So I was just curious, your critique on ADOS or Yvette Carnell as it pertains to us getting that up.
Well, I mean, personally, beyond the political differences, with Yvette, is that she has perpetually lied on me and my colleagues and publicly. I mean, and in a quite impressive way, she's been able to lie publicly about events that are on tape that disprove even what she's saying. So I'm like, that's pretty deep and impressive. But politically, I think ADOS has done well for a number of different reasons. One, they developed an easily digestible hashtag in an easily digestible hashtag moment. They developed some very basic, non-nuanced, again, easily digestible platform planks. And they've done what we talked about earlier, which is a major problem, I think, in this world right now. They've taken a starting point that is legit and just reframed it in a very conservative way. So no one would dispute, who looks at the situation, that we do have an issue here with a disunity among the African diaspora, with a Black American experience being intentionally devalued in this moment. I don't have a problem with any of that. I don't have a problem with recognizing the particular history of Black America, even as a Pan-Africanist. I think all those particular experiences need to be appreciated. A Pan-Africanist doesn't mean we just all think we all African and therefore don't recognize any differences. That's ridiculous. That's not what that is. My problem is the response to the particular situation of Black America, I think, is not a very rightward expansion of an old accommodationist, assimilationist logic. I mean, in some ways, what they're arguing is not new. They've just rebranded an old strain within Black America that says, look, we're not African. We're American. We want what this country owes us. We're not rocking, like she's done her own video, wrap herself in the American flag. Like, if I got to, I'll go to war with these other, Africans and these other brown folks. I'll bomb them with you, because I want my piece of this imperial pie. That's an old argument. The connections she and others have had to those right-wing organizations and anti-immigration organizations is of concern as well. But the politics, the anti-immigrant politics, the condemnation of Latinos as being the cause of Black suffering. I mean, that kind of stuff is absurd. I mean, it's analytically, historically, economically, socially, politically absurd. But taking the argument around reparations and saying Black people deserve reparations is a legit argument. Saying that all the other organizations that have been working on this issue all these years are useless, and Cobra, Ray Winbush, and all the other people they've condemned openly, I don't think that makes sense. I don't think that redefining reparations in the most narrow of terms, that is at best some institutional, if I remember correctly, some student loan forgiveness or something like that, but basically reducing it to payouts and for people that they say that they can identify as deserving. Is Yvette going to sit on the council and determine who's black enough for this? Is that how, but really what I think it is what ultimately why I think they've been so welcomed into this and become so popular, not just that they've been able to strike a chord with many in the black community, but more to that, I think they've been able to strike a chord with the conservative white elements that drive social media and drive the press, which welcome any expression of black politics that is, again, anti-internationalist, anti-socialist, anti-Pan-African, anti-radical. That she literally says. I mean, in our arguments online, I mean, they were all coming at me saying, saying she's the new Malcolm X. The preacher, what's his name, Cosby, that she works with, called her the new Malcolm X. She said George Jackson, Marcus Garvey, all of these people, regardless of their similarities or differences, are irrelevant at this point. I mean, this is their argument. So, taking Dr. King and rebranding him, saying we're coming for that check. When Dr. King was an internationalist, a socialist, an anti-capitalist, someone who said, he didn't argue for reparations. He argued for political power and redistribution of the gross domestic product. And an end to imperialism, and an end to war, redistribution of the wealth. But they claim him too and say, just give us a check. That's so that's why I think that they're so welcome. That's why you see them being interviewed on the very corporate owned Mark Anthony Neal program on Black News Channel. That's why you see them on CNN. That's why you see them thriving in a very state sponsored, commercial sponsored social media environment. It's a very non-threatening, welcomed conservative argument.
All right. So we're going to go. I know we're running low on time, we're going to go to kind of go through some of these comments.
Okay.
So peace.
Peace.
That last comment. That's the last comment. I think we need to throw that up because I'm so
tired. I saw it. We're going to get to it.
So tired of that shit, man.
Yeah, you to try to go through these. Trent, Doc, JAB pushing that work.
Pushing that work. What? Oh.
Careful now. Intellectual work, academic work, media work.
We thought we was talking to Jay Real Estate on here.
I was about to, I don't know. Yeah.
I think the concept of moving money to increase efforts in mental health is a good idea. The name was bad and caused division. I'm not sure what he's referring to.
He might be talking about defund the police.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yes.
Oh,
okay,
right.
yes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they already blamed it, as I think I might have mentioned, they already blamed it a couple of weeks ago. The press was using it a lot to say that this is why there's been an uptick in violence and crime in the country, because police have been defunded, and then they've used it to refund the police like they did here in Maryland. But they didn't really move much money, first of all, and not much time was given to build up these other institutions. And then, of course, violence, of course, is going to rise when you have pandemics and poverty and fear and desperation and joblessness and people being pushed out of their houses. I mean, duh. It's not about police being defunded. It's about the whole world being defunded. It's about people's lives being defunded, so.
Toski Foy, I think it says you fellas confusing yourselves. I'm not sure what that means.
You got a dog sleeping on his couch. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But that's all right. Okay.
Okay. Leah Boggs Jackson.
Leah, what's up? Yeah.
Okay. Numbers don't lie, but capitalism lies all the time.
All day, every day.
Peace, Dr. Jared Ball.
Yes, indeed. Peace, Brother Bailey.
Do you think advertising that you are a black business hurts us?
That's actually an interesting question. I don't I think it definitely could. I think there within the black community think there is a stereotype that black businesses are less quality. I think within the white community, there are similar stereotypes and just a general anti-blackness that would, keep people, other than the do-gooder, whites that want to, support some black business right now to make themselves feel better. But yeah, it might. I don't know. It might.
Okay. Brother Trent, capitalism confuses
That's
us.
real. That's very true. And I love the Kwame Ture line, capitalism makes us think we're thinking when we are merely reacting to stimuli.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah.
Good one. I have to post that one again.
Boy, oh boy. That dude, boy.
I don't know how he got my email. He'd be like sending me. I was getting. So I was like, when did I get this? I had to like block him or something.
I don't know. You might have clicked on something. I don't know. I
him.
signed up for that One United Bank series, so now I still get all their emails.
Yeah, I'm a, him. I was looking. We were looking at the show earlier. Your show earlier, talk with the Roland Martin and Bryant, and it's like we talked about like punching people in the face. Never mind. Let's just move on.
No, I get, but the point really is though, like we don't want to go there, but the point really is that it's frustrating to see people who are clearly taking the money. One thing I didn't say this morning, but I mean, to me, if you look at Roland Martin's face, like I don't even believe he believes what he's saying. Like I don't even believe he's confident that what he's saying is legit. But look, I mean. Look, I try to be. I don't know. I like to do the YouTube thing, but I do have a job. Roland Martin is doing this for his career, so I get the imperative or the encouragement to get that ad money. But I don't know. It's just so frustrating. Yeah,
I think this is my comment. I don't want you to be attached to my comment, but I think you're being too nice to Roland. I think he's always been a media whore, and in that he's a despicable human being, and I think we think of him as an ally to the black masses at our own peril. I think he's in this whatever he's in, he's in it for himself.
Hey, I definitely co-sign that last point about if we listen to him thinking he's doing us a service, it's a perilous situation for sure. Yeah.
So let's do here. Okay. Trent Diallo always said that black elites are servants of the white ruling class.
He's absolutely right.
Okay.
And I think they know it.
Mm-hmm. Salutations, family.
Likewise.
Iris,
peace,
family.
Peace, Iris.
The revolution will be viral.
I hope.
Darren Butler, great info.
Appreciate you. Shout out to Mama Francis in the picture. Barter, I think.
Barter and Bill Think Tank and Black Power Media bringing that good conversation.
Right on. Thank you.
Ain't nobody climbing the rough side of the mountain for likes and fiat.
I heard that.
So long as they have the aesthetics and optics, they can thrive and sustain the hustle.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Brian did have a nice suit and a little nice vest on today. In that video we played,
Oh yeah.
How are we going to think our way out of oppression, domination, destructive social programs? Okay.
Yeah.
Blast them.
With words and metaphors, obviously.
Yes.
And research.
Yes.
So this popped up when we started discussing policy, and Darren asked, policy from who? Hold your response.
Oh, sure.
We're going to put another one to that one.
Okay.
Shout out to the Barter and Build Think Tank family. Shout out. Fiat in exchange for straight fuckery. Power over pockets.
Yeah, that's his name.
And this is Leah Boggs Jackson, our own alternative or response to ADOS.
Solidarity Dispersed Africans. My man, got to shout out my man, the unnamed Dr. Hate. He came up with that one and said they had it exactly backwards. And they did. Yeah.
So in 2021, are we still waiting on a government that builds off our suffering to fix itself?
No.
So I wanted to put this with the last one. I told you to hold your thought. I wanted to put that with this one. And also, same person, we're going to throw it out, but we are talking about people in offices to change things.
I always wonder what people ask these questions studying. Like I want to know what they're studying, what they're reading. But go ahead.
No, my argument around public policy and political power is starts with the idea that again I started referring to myself as a Malcolm X voter. That we would use electoral politics in the way that Malcolm described. Developing our own blocks, our own parties, etc., our own platforms, our own politicians, our own campaigns, our own candidacies, and we vote for them. And to the extent they can get elected, we use that. To the extent that they heighten the contradictions, we use that. But that's my point. My argument is not that we can reform the Democratic Party. Quite the opposite. My argument is not that we can count on those currently in office. Quite the opposite. My point is that we have to be focused on what it would take to assume political power. Now, again, I'm describing one way, which is PACs, blocks, campaigns, platforms, etc. There are other ways, but that needs to be the focus. As long as that's the focus. What I don't like is when people say we can't wait on the government, and that's why we got to get our money right and get our businesses together. I'm not saying Darren is saying that, but that's often accompanying this sort of argument. And I'm not saying that at all either. That's part of the mythology, but I don't want to be confused as saying, we can count on the squad and we can, we should wait on AOC and Bernie. That's not what I'm saying at all either. So it's a little more nuanced, it's a little more complicated and a lot more difficult, but yeah.
Salute and much respect from Power Jams DJs.
Oh, right on. Likewise, shout out to all the DJs. Hate. That's it. 2:30.
Yeah, that's that Thomas and Cara book right there. The women's struggle.
That's right. That's it.
Okay, so that's all of the comments we have so far. So we're gonna kind of wrap up here, and any last comments or anything that we may have missed earlier, we want to go ahead and try to get in before the end of the episode.
No, I just appreciate you, and I appreciate the invitation, and I appreciate the discussion. And that's really it. So thank you very much, and to those who are here now, who see it later, I appreciate you, and thank you again. Yeah,
I just want to say that, and Geechee mentioned this briefly earlier, that explanations that don't explain and solutions that don't solve comes from the speeches, if you will, of Chairman Fred Hampton. So we want to pay homage to him, and the work in the community of building a rainbow coalition, if you will, one that is much more effective and much more grassroots and beneficial to the masses than anything Jesse Jackson was talking about. But so we want to pay homage to Fred Hampton, and Geechee, is there anything you would like to?
No,
remember what he said about a black capitalist, right?
You
show me a black capitalist, and I'm gonna beat him to death with a Black Panther newspaper.
No violence.
You know,
No violence. He didn't touch him.
no
It was a
violence. I'm just saying that he was clear on the possibility of black capitalism helping black people. That's all I mean by referencing that.
Oh no, it was the newspaper that hit him. We didn't do it. It was the newspaper. Nah.
And he meant beat him over the head with the information in the newspaper. That's what I'm sure he meant.
Oh, so not what I was doing with your booking people in Baltimore. I was chopping people with the book. My bad. I misquoted. I was just hitting people with the book. My bad. I'll take that one. Now, but coming up, we on September 13th is our next one with Dr. Jessica Gordon Nimhart. I think that's the next one that's coming up on the 13th at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Then we have another one. What's the other one?
So
hey, by the way, ask her. I didn't get to ask Dr. Nimhart, and I haven't had a chance to talk. We used to work together briefly years ago at College Park.
Okay.
And I once had her on my radio show before she did her book. And I was before I did mine on buying power, and I was trying to, and I was on a platform she was on recently and tried to ask a question, and I don't think it got there. So I think it'd be something of interest if you all are interested. I'd love to see her, because in her work she references Du Bois's discussion of the cooperative.
Mm-hmm.
But with all due respect, I think she quotes him at a particular time in his life in the 30s, where he himself misunderstood and misrepresented the concept of buying power.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to wonder, because I get it, cooperatives are of value and are important, but when she references Du Bois and his support for cooperatives, she references it at a time where I've seen in his own work he made reference to buying power completely incorrectly. Misunderstanding what it was there for. And I think, again, this is seeping into even progressive and radical analyses where this is being misunderstood. So people trying to apply this buying power concept to even well-intentioned work is going to run into some contradiction. But so I don't know. I didn't mean to put that on you.
No.
Talking to her, I just thought it'd be something I'd like to see if she would respond to that. Even if to critically check me,
Yeah. Well, we have some of the action.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because we were talking about the exact same thing during our last book club meeting.
Oh wow!
Okay. Yeah, so we're this is a question that we fully intend to ask her once we have her on the show. So
right on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work. Sorry to interrupt you too.
No. It's fine.
No, she has been like in so far. She's been dropping a whole bunch of I don't know if she.
Yeah, but some of the things. Yeah, some of the things that she's been talking about the black buying power and things like that, and it's making us nervous. So so okay, hold on now, hold on.
Yeah.
But
well, anyway, but it's good. I she's good people, and I look forward to hearing the conversation. And again, this is sort of my point. Like it's sort of the point about I'm trying to make about buying power is that it has been, I think, misunderstood by so many across the political spectrum. And I thought it was funny that this was the one thing Du Bois and Garvey agreed on, and that Garvey joked him about in his own press. So I just anyway. But like I said, thank you both very much. I really appreciate the invitation, and I appreciate the work that you all do. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So we want to thank everyone for commenting. We want to thank everyone for participating in the chat, viewing this. We are appreciative of Dr. Jared Ball. He's the author of The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power, as you see there on the screen. Also, we want to go ahead and big up Black Power Media. Whenever you have a chance, if you haven't done so already,
thank you.
Go and check out Black Power Media. So with that said, we say to everyone, peace.
Peace.
Peace, everybody.